Hello, welcome to Algorithms. Today we are going to discuss about how to apply zero trust architecture on AWS. So before we jump into the architecture part, it is very important to understand the threat modeling approach. So I'm using a simple stride model, which is kind of used by several organizations. And why it is being done? Because when you are considering threats, you ask certain questions like how can an attacker change the authentication data? What is the impact if an attacker can read the user profile data? What happens if access is denied to a specific data set? So you can group these threads into categories to help you formulate these kind of pointed questions. One model you may find useful is STRIDE, as I mentioned, derived from an acronym from the following six threat categories. So these are the what I have listed here are the six threat categories: spoofing identity, tampering with the data, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, elevation of privileges. Now, the threat modeling process in itself is an extensive exercise in which you first identify the known threats to the system based upon the business vertical you are in, rank the threats in order by decreasing risk, determine how you will respond to those threats, identify techniques that mitigate the threats, and then choose the appropriate technologies from the identified techniques. I hope you understood the basics of threat modeling approach and how to come up with those design principles. Though this is not threat modeling process presentation. So our focus is more on how to implement zero trust architecture on AWS. So we are not going deep into it, but definitely in one of the future presentations, I'll try to cover the complete process, end-to-end process, how to design and come up with the threat modeling approach. Okay, so I have done is taken one of the architectures, best practices architecture from AWS, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare this AWS best practice architecture with the another architecture which has got zero trust implemented. So as you know, the definition of zero trust is never trust and always verify. And since this is the best practice architecture, you see we have implemented several AWS services, right from load balancing, uh, uh, availability zones, AWS security group, Route 53, Amazon CloudFront, Amazon Web Application Firewall, AWS Shield to prevent us from uh, denial of service attacks. Now, the most important thing is how we apply the zero trust architecture on top of this one. Now, if you go to this slide, these services are basically, I just mentioned, are the ones which are included in the best practices architecture that I just exhibited in the previous slide. So you can just go through it. I'm not going to read about the services because I assume those who are going through this presentation already know about the AWS services as well as Azure services, as I said in the previous presentation. So this is the architecture, the same architecture with zero trust applied on it. Now, what is the difference? If you look at it deeply, we have we have uh, we have discussed a very simple definition. Zero trust means never trust, always verify. So what does it mean? Never trust is applicable within the organization as well. So even if two applications are talking to each other, it is considered that they don't have to trust each other. There has to be a mechanism or a policy implemented in order to make sure that the trust is established between these two. Now, how do you do that? For instance, in the previous architecture, if you see, web application firewall was implemented with the CloudFront, but there was no firewall within the network, right? At the same time, you spot another difference like with a proxy tier, so that all the inputs are validated. All the inputs which are coming or bypassing the CloudFront, coming to web tier and going to application tier, are validated by proxy tier. So overall, what I am going to uh, showcase here is, in the zero trust model, what are the additional things we have implemented just to make sure every service which is talking to another service, making sure that the communication is trusted, data is trusted, and it is a completely secure communication based upon the zero trust design principles that we have considered right in the beginning. So you see, the second WAF provides the layer 7 security for anyone bypassing the CloudFront or randomly searching for the IPs. Guard duty watches your environment, looking for anomalies outside and inside your VPC. Now, KMS is also implemented for backups and data, and security groups and network ACL to provide layer 3 and layer 4 protection. As I discussed about a new proxy tier that evaluates calls made between the web tier and the application tier to validate the inputs. And we also have an API gateway and a serverless like Lambda service used in this architecture. So the API gateway and Lambda provides an opportunity to ensure all calls made to the database tier are well formed and clean. Now you see, we have used at least 5 to 6 uh, additional services on top of what is being used in the best architecture. It does not mean that the best architecture is not good, but at the end of the day, when we are talking about zero trust architecture, we have to include other aspects as well based upon the design principles. Now, the most important thing is, zero trust goes beyond building a network boundary between each microservice or module in your architecture. So beyond strengthening your component perimeters, rethink threat sources and investment to protect against them. Zero trust models are not always appropriate because there is a cost associated with it, and there is a operational aspect as well that has to be taken care. But yeah, means you can look at the most important services or aspects uh, where your business is prone to risk or vulnerable, and those are the places where you need to have zero trust architecture. So this second diagram offers some security benefit, but it, as I said, it also introduces cost, complexity, and operational overhead for maintaining the overall system. So whenever you consider zero trust architecture, evaluate all 4 or 5 pillars of the well architected framework to properly balance your needs. So we spoke about the 5 pillars in the first presentation that you can refer, which are very important in terms of designing a zero trust architecture. I guess this is it from my side. If you have any specific question, you can just drop those questions in the comment. If you like the video, please uh, uh, push the like button, uh, subscribe to this channel so that you get notified every time a video is released. And if you have any other feedback, please drop your comments, and I'll try to incorporate this feedback as well. Thank you very much. Have a great day.